Have you ever carried a pain so silent that not even your own prayers could describe it? A wound buried so deep that not even time dared to heal it. Something invisible to everyone around you, but that bleeds inside every time you breathe. Every time you try to smile, every time you pretend that everything is fine. And what if I told you that there is a message, not made of human words, but whispered from eternity? A message you were meant to hear today. This is not just a video. It's a moment that was set aside in time, a pause in the chaos, a divine appointment written in the invisible script of your life, a space between your pain and your healing. Today, you're not watching by accident. You are here because your soul is crying out for something deeper, not entertainment, not distraction, but truth, restoration, wholeness. Let me ask you something. That might sting a little. How long have you been bleeding on the inside while wearing a smile on the outside? You encourage others. You say, "I'm fine." You keep moving, but inside, you're not fine. You've been surviving instead of living. Your heart is tired, your spirit is weary. And the worst part is, you've learned to function in the pain. But what if there's something greater for you? Not just relief, but healing. Not just strength to carry the wound, but grace to finally let it go. This message isn't about quick fixes. It's about soul restoration, about divine alignment, about letting the spirit touch places no one else can reach. If you stay with me to the end, I believe something will happen, not outside, but within. Because healing doesn't start with the body, it starts in the soul. Let me make a promise that I don't make lightly. If you allow yourself to feel every word of this message, if you lean in, open your heart, and truly listen, not just with your ears, but with the ache inside you, this message will begin a healing process in you that no one can explain. You might cry, you might feel discomfort, but by the end, something will begin to shift, not because of me, but because you dared to stop running. Now, before we go deeper, I want to ask you to take a small but sacred step. Like this video, subscribe, and comment the phrase, "I am hearing his voice," below. Yes, those actions may seem like digital habits, but today they are a symbol of something bigger, a declaration, a spiritual sign that you are choosing to receive what heaven wants to say to you. When you comment that phrase, you're not just typing. You are sending a signal into the invisible realm that says, "I'm ready to hear," and someone else scrolling through may read your words and decide to listen too. Your step of faith could echo into someone else's healing. This is not just content, this is a calling, a moment of encounter, a sacred space of honesty. So breathe, take one honest breath. Allow the tears if they come. Don't hold back. Let your walls crack just a little, and let this message do what it was meant to do, to find you, to hold you, to begin to heal you from the inside out. We're about to walk through ancient truths, words that have crossed generations to reach your soul today. You'll hear stories, not just from scripture, but reflections that speak into your midnight seasons, the times when no one knew how dark your thoughts got, but God saw. He's always seen. This is your time to feel again, to remember that. Even broken hearts still beat, and wounded souls can still sing. And yes, healing is still possible, but not through force, through surrender, through listening, through letting go. So, if you're still here, say it one more time in the comments, "I'm hearing his voice." Because he's not silent, he's not absent. He's been waiting for you to get quiet enough to finally hear. Let's begin. Have you ever wondered why the deepest wounds are the ones we never speak about? It's not the obvious scars that hurt the most. It's the quiet ones, the emotional cuts, the betrayals no one saw, the heartbreaks you were too ashamed to admit, the guilt you carry alone, the grief that settled in your soul like fog and never quite lifted. The Bible speaks of wounds, not just physical ones, but soul wounds. Psalm 147:3 says, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. That verse isn't poetic fluff. It's a lifeline, a quiet truth with thunder behind it. Let's pause here. Do you realize that to be brokenhearted means something was once whole and then shattered? That means God is not just aware of your pain, He knows it's before and after. He remembers you whole. He sees what broke you, and still He believes you can be restored. But how? The world teaches us to hide our pain, to suppress it, to cover it with busyness, success, religion, numbness, or distraction. But healing never happens in the shadows. It begins when we stop pretending, when we bring our bruised soul to the one who doesn't recoil from our mess. Take a look at the woman with the issue of blood in Mark 5. For 12 years she bled, quietly, desperately, secretly. Do you know what the most painful part was? Not just the sickness, but the shame of it. The isolation, the spiritual rejection, the belief that maybe she deserved it, but one day she touched Jesus and instantly healing flowed, not just in her body, but in her identity. He didn't just say, "You're healed." He called her daughter. That matters, because sometimes, before God heals your pain, He first restores your name. You are not what happened to you. You are not your sin. You are not your failure. You are not your trauma. You are His. Let that truth sink in. You are still His. So, many people live with invisible wounds because they think God only touches the righteous, the clean, the perfect. But Jesus came for the sick. He came for the bleeding, the ignored, the ashamed. He came for you. The problem isn't that God won't heal. The problem is that we stop reaching. We stop believing it's possible. We stop showing up. And healing always requires showing up. Let me ask you something. What are you still bleeding from? What have you hidden so deep inside that you almost forgot it hurt? Because the truth is, if it still hurts when you think about it, it's not healed yet. And God wants to meet you there, not with blame, not with guilt, but with presence. Healing doesn't happen through effort. It happens through contact. Just like the woman who touched the hem of Jesus's garment, healing begins the moment you reach, even if it's trembling, even if it's your last ounce of strength. You don't need the perfect prayer. You don't need religious eloquence. You just need one honest moment. Jesus, I can't carry this anymore. And that's when something shifts, the bleeding stops, the shame lifts, the noise fades, and for the first time in a long time, you begin to feel seen again. If something in this spoke to your heart, write in the comments right now. I know He hears me. You're not writing to impress, you're writing to align your soul with the truth you're beginning to remember. And share this video with someone who might be bleeding in silence too. Don't assume they're okay just because they're smiling. You could be the reason someone starts healing today. Let this be your sign. If God could stop for a woman in a crowd of hundreds, He will stop for you. Do you know what silence can do to a soul? Not the peaceful kind, the oppressive silence. The kind that follows a prayer you poured out with tears and trembling, only to be met with nothing. The kind of silence that makes you wonder if heaven is even listening. That silence can crush. It can echo in your mind until you start believing. The lie that maybe God doesn't care, or worse, that maybe you don't matter enough to be answered. But here's the truth that has carried the broken for generations. God's silence is not His absence. Look at Lazarus. His sisters, Mary and Martha, sent word to Jesus, "Lord, the one you love is sick." They didn't say, "Lazarus, your servant." They said, "The one you love." And still, Jesus waited. He didn't rush. He didn't show up right away. He delayed. And in that delay, Lazarus died. Imagine that heartbreak. They trusted Jesus. They believed in Him. They called out to Him from a place of deep relationship. And He didn't come in time. How many times have you felt that same ache, that same heartbreak when you said, "God, I believed you would heal them. I trusted you would restore this marriage. I thought you would stop the pain." And still, the answer didn't come. But Jesus wasn't being cruel. He said something extraordinary. This sickness will not end in death. It is for God's glory. See, they saw the end. But Jesus saw the setup. There are moments in life where it seems like everything is collapsing, when prayers feel unanswered and pain screams louder than hope. But in those moments, Jesus is never unaware. He's just preparing a resurrection greater than your request. When Jesus finally arrived, Lazarus had been in the grave 4 days. Why does that matter? Because Jewish tradition held that the soul lingered near the body for 3 days. And so, the fourth, all hope was considered gone. So Jesus waited until every human possibility was dead, until all logic, faith, tradition, and expectation said, "It's over." Then he came and called Lazarus out of the grave. This is the God we serve, a God who is not late. He is intentional. A God who allows the darkness to fall just so his light can break through in ways no one can deny. A God who loves you enough not to give you what's easy, but what is eternal. So let me ask you something personal. Is there something in your life that feels like it's already buried? A relationship, a calling, a part of you that once burned with purpose? What if it's not dead, just waiting for his voice to call it back to life? You see, the same Jesus who called Lazarus by name still speaks today, and he's calling you, not just to survive, not just to endure, but to rise, to come out of the emotional grave you've settled into, to take off the grave clothes of shame, depression, guilt, and regret, to walk into the light, even if you don't feel ready. You may say, "But I stink. I'm not clean. I've been dead too long." But Jesus never asked Lazarus to clean himself first. He called him out, and then he removed the death from him. That's grace, that's love, that's the gospel. If you feel something stirring inside you, if your soul is remembering what it's like to hope again, don't ignore that. Type in the comments, "This word is for me." You're not too far gone. You're not too broken. You're not too late. And if you've ever felt that heaven was silent, maybe today you'll realize the silence wasn't abandonment. It was timing. It was strategy. It was the setup for a miracle that would change everything. Like this video now if something shifted in your heart. And make sure you're subscribed, because what comes next might be exactly what your soul has been crying out for. Do you know what it's like to carry a wound no one can see? Some scars scream in silence. They don't bleed, but they break. You little by little. You smile in front of others. You function. You survive. But deep down, you're exhausted. You've learned how to hide the ache so well that even those closest to you don't know how much you're hurting. And sometimes, not even you realize just how heavy the burden has become. David knew this feeling. Not the version of him we often remember, the giant killer, the warrior king, but the wounded worshipper who wrote in Psalm 6, "I am worn out from my groaning. All night long I flood my bed with weeping and drench my couch with tears. This is a man after God's own heart." Yet he cried himself to sleep, night after night. A man chosen, anointed, loved, yet still crushed under invisible pain, pain that no one else could carry, pain that songs couldn't fix, pain that followed him even into worship. Have you ever felt like that? You worship and still feel empty. You pray, but your words feel hollow. You try to move forward, but something keeps pulling you back. Sometimes the wounds of the soul are not caused by great tragedies. Sometimes they come from small, consistent cracks in your heart, disappointments, betrayals, delays, unspoken fears. And those wounds, they don't heal with time. They heal with truth. They heal with presence. They heal when you allow God into the places you've kept hidden, even from yourself. There's a moment in David's story that often goes unnoticed, but it carries a profound weight. After Nathan confronts him about his failure, his sin with Bathsheba, the murder of Uriah, the weight of shame and consequence, David doesn't defend himself. He doesn't blame others. He writes Psalm 51, "You desire truth in the innermost being. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me." This is not a prayer of religion. It's a prayer of surrender. A man stripped of every excuse. A soul laid bare before a God who sees everything and still chooses mercy. The healing began the moment he stopped pretending, because healing doesn't come when we impress God. It comes when we're honest with Him. You don't need to perform. You don't need to be fine. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to bring the broken pieces and let Him breathe over them. So I'll ask you something uncomfortable now. What are you pretending isn't broken? What part of your soul have you locked away because it hurts too much to face? Could it be that healing has been waiting, not for the pain to go away, but for you to stop hiding it? Right now, someone watching this is on the edge. You're tired of pretending, tired of smiling while bleeding inside. And maybe this isn't just another video. Maybe this is God's whisper. Let me in. I've seen it all, and I'm not ashamed of you. I just want to heal you. If you felt that whisper, respond to it. Write in the comments, "I am hearing His voice." Say it as an act of courage, a declaration of surrender, a spiritual shift. And if you haven't subscribed yet, don't wait. This space is more than content. It's a refuge, a sanctuary for wounded hearts. Be part of this family, because healing rarely happens alone. Also, please like this video, not just to support it, but because someone else might stumble upon it, and that click might be the doorway to their healing. Healing isn't always loud. Sometimes it begins in a whisper. Sometimes it begins right here. Have you ever felt like your prayers were bouncing off the ceiling? You whisper, you cry, you plead, and still nothing moves. Heaven feels silent. Days stretch into weeks and weeks into months, and in the quiet, a terrifying thought begins to creep in. Maybe God doesn't hear me. But what if I told you that silence isn't absence? What if the silence is sacred? Let me take you to a garden, not Eden, but Gethsemane. Jesus, the Son of God, is on His knees. Blood mixes with sweat. His soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death, and He prays, "Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." Do you hear the tension in His voice? Even Jesus, divine, perfect, and holy, experienced the weight of unanswered prayer, the crushing pressure of pain He knew He'd have to endure. And yet, He surrendered. He didn't run. He didn't numb the pain. He laid it at the feet of the Father fully. That moment wasn't marked by thunder or angel choirs. No miracle broke the silence. The heavens didn't split open with reassurance. The answer wasn't yes, it was endure. And still, Jesus trusted the heart of the one who seemed silent. That's where healing begins. Healing isn't the absence of pain. It's the presence of trust in the middle of it. It's choosing to believe when nothing makes sense that God is still writing a beautiful story out of broken pieces. There's something sacred about staying in the garden. Most people run. Most people try to escape the uncomfortable, the unknown, the quiet. But the ones who stay, those who remain in prayer, even when it feels empty, they're the ones who discover something most people never will. That the silence of God is not rejection, it's preparation. He's doing something inside of you before He changes what's around you. You may feel weak, but God is building strength. You may feel forgotten, but He's drawing you closer. You may feel like nothing is happening, but something is. Even now, something sacred is stirring beneath the surface. Think about the seed planted in soil, buried, hidden, surrounded by darkness, but in that quiet, invisible place, it's breaking open. Life is forming. Growth is beginning. What you call delay might be the deep work of God preparing you for a season you're not yet strong enough to carry. So instead of asking, "Why is He silent?" ask, What is he growing inside of me while I wait? Can you hold onto him without the feeling? Can you stay when there are no signs? Can you worship when there are no words? That's where your soul begins to heal. Because healing isn't just about being comforted, it's about being changed. Your faith stops being a performance. It becomes a relationship, a surrender, a holy intimacy that doesn't depend on answers, but rests in presence. If this is echoing in your heart right now, if you're the one who has been praying in silence, aching in secret, then I want you to breathe in this truth. You are not alone, and you are not ignored. The silence is not punishment. It's sacred space. God is closer than your feelings can detect. And maybe, just maybe, this message is the confirmation you've been begging for. If that's you, type in the comments. Right now, speak to me, Lord. Write it as a declaration, a bold, unshakable invitation. And if you haven't done it yet, subscribe, not for numbers, but because this may be the only place where your heart hears what it needs. Don't miss the words that could realign your soul. Like this video and let it find someone else sitting in silence, feeling forgotten. They may need it more than they know. Even silence can be holy ground. Stay in the garden. Healing is coming. There's something mysterious that happens when we stop fighting the silence and start listening to it. Have you noticed how pain has a voice of its own? It whispers lies when we're most vulnerable. It says, "You're not enough. God has abandoned you. You'll never be whole again." But what if pain wasn't the enemy? What if pain was the messenger? What if, hidden beneath your wounds, there was a divine invitation, not to run, not to numb, but to enter into deeper healing? Let's step into the story of Job. Job lost everything: his children, his health, his wealth. Everything that gave his life meaning was stripped away. And when his friends tried to comfort him with answers, he rejected them. He didn't want explanations, he wanted encounter. In Job 42:5, after all the suffering, Job finally says, "My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you." That is the turning point. Before the pain, Job knew about God. After the pain, Job knew God. Suffering did not destroy him. It opened his eyes. It peeled away the religious layers, the formulas, the false securities. And in the rawness of his grief, Job discovered something most people miss, that healing begins the moment we stop needing answers and start needing him. You may be in a season where the questions are louder than the promises. You don't know why the marriage failed. You don't know why the sickness came. You don't know why the prayer wasn't answered. But maybe it's not about the why. Maybe it's about the who. Who is holding you in the darkness? Who is shaping you in the waiting? Who is whispering truth beneath the noise of your fear? The world tells you to run from pain, to distract yourself, to medicate, to pretend. But the Spirit of God calls you to something deeper, to face it, to feel it, to find Him in it. There is a version of you on the other side of this pain that is freer, truer, softer, and stronger. But you don't get there by skipping the process. You have to pass through the fire, because fire doesn't just destroy. It purifies, it refines, it reveals what's eternal. The pain you feel today may be preparing you to carry the glory of tomorrow. And hear this, your wounds don't disqualify you. They make you relatable, they make you credible, they make you real. Some of the most powerful people in Scripture were marked not by their victories, but by their scars. Jacob walked with a limp after wrestling with God. Paul bore a thorn in his flesh and still changed the world. Jesus, our Savior, still carries the marks of crucifixion on his resurrected body. Don't be ashamed of what broke you. That may be the very thing God uses to reach others through you. So the question is no longer, how do I make the pain stop? The real question is, what is God building through my brokenness? Because if you surrender it, He'll shape it. If you offer it, He'll redeem it. If you stay with him, in it he'll heal what you thought was beyond restoration. If this is hitting your heart, I want you to pause just for a moment. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and say aloud, even if your voice shakes, I am still in his hands. Now type it below. Let it be your confession of faith. I am still in his hands. Like this video to give someone else the courage to stay in their process. Subscribe, because this is just the beginning. Your healing isn't a moment, it's a journey, and you're not walking it alone. The most powerful healing isn't always loud or instant. Sometimes it begins with a whisper, in the stillness, in the scars, in the sacred ache that refuses to give up. You are not beyond repair. You are being rebuilt by the one who makes all things new. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when the questions change. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is God awakening in me through this? That shift, it's not just a mindset, it's a spiritual resurrection, because healing isn't only about mending what was broken. Healing is about becoming someone entirely new, reborn through the very pain that once threatened to destroy you. Let's turn to the story of the woman with the issue of blood, found in Luke 8:43-48. For 12 years, she had suffered in silence. 12 years of doctors, disappointment and isolation. 12 years of feeling unseen, unclean, and unworthy. And yet, she never gave up hope. She whispered to herself, if I can just touch the edge of his robe, I will be healed. Not if she had a conversation, not if he laid hands on her. Just a touch, just a brush with the divine was enough to activate her faith. And it worked. In an instant, the bleeding stopped. But here's what's extraordinary. Jesus didn't let her sneak away healed and anonymous. He turned and said, who touched me? He already knew. He's God. But he asked, not to shame her, but to elevate her. He wanted her seen. He wanted her story told. He wanted her pain to become public so her healing could become a testimony. Jesus didn't just heal her body, he restored her dignity. He looked at her and said, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Did you hear that? Daughter, after 12 years of being rejected, labeled, dismissed, he called her daughter. That one word healed more than her body. It healed her identity. Some of you watching right now have been carrying pain not just in your body, but in your identity. You've been defined by your trauma, your mistake, your diagnosis, and deep down you wonder if God sees you as anything more than damaged. But he's not avoiding your story. He's stepping into it. He's turning toward you asking, who touched me? Not because he doesn't know, but because he wants you to know you matter that much. He won't let your healing be hidden. He wants your breakthrough to shine. He wants the world to know that your past didn't win. So let me ask you this. What if your healing isn't just for you? What if your healing will awaken someone else's hope? Think about it. Your scars could become roadmaps for someone else's survival. Your restoration could be the proof someone needs to believe again. Your voice, once silenced by pain, could become the trumpet of freedom for others. This is why your story can't end in suffering. God is writing a resurrection. But you've got to take the step. You've got to reach out, like that woman did, and touch the hem of his presence with whatever faith you've got left. Maybe your faith is messy, maybe it's tired, maybe it's just a whisper. That's enough. He hears even the silent cries. So right now, write this in the comments as an act of faith. I touched him and he saw me. Let your declaration stir something in heaven, and don't stop here. Like this video if your soul feels lighter. Subscribe if you felt seen in these words, because we're building a space for hearts like yours. Remember, healing isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's found in the quiet moment when you realize you're not invisible anymore. You are seen, you are loved, you are whole. Even if the world hasn't caught up yet, There's a silence that speaks louder than any scream. It's the silence of God that shows up when we're desperate for a word, a sign, a whisper, anything. And it doesn't come. Have you ever been there? You pray, you cry, you plead, and the heavens feel closed. No confirmation, no dream, no open door, just silence. But what if I told you that God's silence is not his absence? It's his preparation. Let's sit with this truth. The most transformative seasons of your soul often happen in silence. Let's go to John 11, the story of Lazarus. Jesus gets word that his friend is sick, critically sick, and what does Jesus do? He waits 2 more days, he delays on purpose, and in that delay, Lazarus dies. His sisters, Mary and Martha, are devastated. They say to Jesus when he finally arrives, "Lord, if you had been here, our brother would not have died." Can you feel that heartbreak? It's the same heartbreak we feel when we say, "God, where were you when I needed you most? Why didn't you stop this? Why did you stay silent?" But listen, Jesus wasn't late. He was setting the stage for something greater than a healing. He was preparing for a resurrection, because anyone can believe in a God who prevents pain. But it takes deep-tested faith to believe in a God who resurrects what looks dead. Jesus stands before the tomb and says, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" Then he calls out, "Lazarus, come forth." And the dead man walks out. Imagine the shock, the disbelief, the awe. But here's what we often miss. Between the prayer and the miracle, there was silence. That same silence you might be in right now. But just because heaven is silent doesn't mean heaven is still. God is always working, even when he's quiet. And maybe, just maybe, your Lazarus is about to come out of that tomb. Maybe what you thought was the end is just the beginning of the real miracle. So let me ask you, can you trust him when he's quiet? Can you keep walking when you can't? Hear him? Can you keep believing when your heart is heavy and your prayers feel unanswered? Because the greatest acts of faith don't happen when you hear God's voice clearly. They happen when you keep following him through the silence. Write this in the comments. If this resonates with your soul, I trust him even in the silence. Let your declaration be louder than your doubt. Like this video if your heart feels seen. Subscribe if you're learning to walk by faith and not by feelings, because this space is for those who refuse to quit. Sometimes God delays the miracle not to punish you, but to prepare you. He's strengthening your spirit. He's expanding your capacity to carry what's coming. Because resurrection is heavier than healing, it requires a different kind of strength, so hold on, he's coming. And when he does, the grave won't be able to keep what belongs to you. What happens when everything you thought you knew about your life is shattered? When your dreams seem to fall apart, and you stand in the rubble wondering if there's anything left to rebuild? This is the moment when God's power is truly revealed, not when everything is perfect, not when everything is in place, but when it looks like all hope is lost. I want to talk to you about the moments of complete brokenness, the moments when life seems too heavy to carry and the tears feel like they'll never stop. And yet, in those very moments, God is doing his most profound work. Think about Job, a man who had everything: wealth, family, health, honor. He was known for his righteousness, and then it all falls apart. In a single day, he loses everything: his wealth, his children, his health, his dignity. He is left with nothing but ashes and a broken spirit. He sits in the dust, scraping his wounds, and asks the same question we all ask when life seems unfair. Why God? Why me? Job's response to his suffering wasn't easy. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't a simple, "I trust you, God," in the midst of pain. Instead, Job wrestled with God. He questioned. He doubted. He even lamented the day he was born. Yet even in his deepest agony, Job never fully turned away. In the end, after all the questions, all the moments of pain, God responds, not with an explanation, but with an invitation. He says, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?" And then God reveals his sovereignty, his majesty, and his purpose. Through the deepest suffering, Job comes to know God in a way he never could have before. Job's life didn't return to its former glory right away. But by the end of the story, Job says something profound. "I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted." This is the turning point. The moment when Job, after his suffering, sees with new eyes. He doesn't just see his pain. He sees the purposes behind it. What if I told you that your pain has a purpose too? What if the very thing you're going through right now, the thing that feels impossible, unbearable, is the very thing that's going to draw you closer to God than ever before? When life breaks us, God rebuilds us, not to restore us to what we were, but to bring us into something greater. He doesn't just heal the wounds, he strengthens the spirit. He doesn't just fix the brokenness, he redeems it. And what if I told you that your season of brokenness isn't the end, it's just the beginning? Maybe what you're facing today is shaping you for the future. Maybe the brokenness is a stepping stone to a deeper relationship with God. Maybe this season of silence is preparing you for a new revelation, one that will transform your life. As you reflect on this, ask yourself, what part of your life feels broken today? What if God is using that very brokenness to create something beautiful? In you, I want to challenge you. If you're in a place of brokenness, of pain, of confusion, hold on. This isn't the end. God is still working. And if you feel that deep stirring in your heart, let this moment be your declaration. I am being transformed. Like this video if your soul is resonating with this truth. Subscribe to stay connected with this journey, because your story is still being written and we're just getting started. Write in the comments, "I trust you even in my brokenness." This is your act of faith. Your declaration that despite the pain, you are not defeated. And remember, God is doing something in you that will make sense later. Even if it doesn't now, trust him. Hold on to the hope that this season of struggle will lead to a season of breakthrough. It's a question many of us ask in the deepest moments of our struggles. Why is this happening? And the silence that follows often feels unbearable, doesn't it? You pray. You cry out, you beg for answers, and yet the response doesn't come immediately. The road ahead seems long, dark, and uncertain. But in the midst of this uncertainty, there's something important to understand about the silence of God. God's silence is not his absence. It's his invitation. It's an invitation to trust him even when we don't see the full picture. An invitation to surrender our timelines, our expectations, and our understanding of what's best. What if the silence in your life is God's way of preparing you for something more than you could ever imagine? What if the answer is not in a loud voice, but in the quiet of your heart? Think about the prophet Elijah. Elijah, one of the greatest prophets in the Old Testament, had just experienced one of the most powerful victories in his life. He had called down fire from heaven to consume a sacrifice, proving that the God of Israel was the one true God. But after that victory, Elijah found himself running for his life, fearing for his very existence. He was hiding in a cave, afraid and exhausted. He was at his lowest point, wondering if it was all worth it. And it is in this moment of despair that God speaks, not in a storm, not in an earthquake, but in a gentle whisper. What are you doing here, Elijah? You see, Elijah's struggle wasn't just physical, it was spiritual, it was emotional. And God didn't come to him with a loud rebuke. He didn't come to condemn him for his doubts. God came to Elijah in a way that only Elijah could understand, a whisper. This moment shows us that God's way of speaking is not always in the obvious, the dramatic, or the miraculous. Sometimes he speaks to us in the stillness, in the quietness of our heart. What if I told you that this silence in your life, this moment of waiting is where God is molding you, preparing you, and speaking to you in ways that cannot be heard unless you are still. What if the silence is part of His plan to draw you nearer, to help you let go of your own desires, and to trust that He knows what's best for you? In the silence, God teaches us patience. He teaches us surrender. He teaches us to let go of control and trust in His timing. Just like the Israelites had to wait 40 years in the wilderness before entering the promised land, sometimes we must wait. Not because God doesn't care, but because He is preparing us for something far greater than we can imagine. So what if the silence you feel right now is actually a sign that God is near, that He's preparing you for something beyond your understanding? In this moment of stillness, ask yourself, what is God speaking to my heart right now, even in the silence? I want to encourage you. If you are in a season of waiting, of silence, hold on to this truth. God is at work in the quiet. And if you're ready to trust that He is moving, even when you can't see it, say with me, I trust you, even in the silence. Like this video, if you believe that God is working even in the waiting. Subscribe to continue walking this journey with us, and in the comments write, "Speak to me, Lord." This is your declaration of faith, your willingness to hear His whisper, even when the world is loud around you. Remember, your breakthrough is often just on the other side of the silence. Hold on. Don't give up. God's voice will come to you in ways you never expected. Just listen and trust that He's always working on your behalf. What if I told you that the pain you're feeling right now could be the very thing that ushers in your greatest breakthrough? Yes, your greatest breakthrough. It's a hard truth, isn't it? We've all felt the weight of pain, of loss, and of disappointment. We've all faced moments when we've questioned why we are going through what we're going through. But here's what I've come to understand. God can use your pain to create something beautiful. Pain has a way of transforming us. It strips us of our pride, our comfort, and sometimes even our sense of control. And in that brokenness, God is able to come in and do something remarkable. He's able to heal, restore, and make us whole in ways we could never have imagined. Take a moment to think about the story of Joseph. Joseph, the beloved son of Jacob, was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. His life seemed to be a series of tragic events, one after another, but in the midst of his suffering, God was with him. Joseph's pain didn't defeat him, it refined him. Joseph's pain prepared him for the purpose God had for his life. He wasn't just being shaped for survival, he was being shaped for destiny. His journey through pain and hardship led him to a place of influence, a place where he could save nations and reunite with his family. What if the same is true for you? What if the pain you're going through is not a sign that God has abandoned you, but rather a sign that He is preparing you for something far greater than you could ever have dreamed? You see, we often think of pain as something to avoid, something to run from. But God has a different perspective. He allows pain not to destroy us, but to draw us closer to Him. He allows it to refine us, to make us more like the image He has for us. There's a verse in Romans 8:28 that says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." All things, not just the easy things, not just the things that make sense. Even in the painful moments, God is working for your good. Even in the heartache, God is shaping you for your purpose. But here's the thing, we have to trust Him in the process. The temptation in our pain is to question God, to ask why we're going through this, to wonder if He's really there. But in those moments, we must choose faith over fear. We must choose to believe that even when we can't see the way, God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating everything for our good. What if this season of pain is just a chapter that, when you look back on it, you'll see how it was the very thing that shaped you into the person God needed you to be? pain does not have to be the end of the story. It can be the beginning of something greater. The key is allowing God to use it, to heal you through it, and to trust that He will bring you out of it stronger than before. So I encourage you, if you're going through something painful right now, hold on to this truth. God is working in your pain. He's doing something that will be revealed in His perfect timing. If you believe that God can turn your pain into purpose, comment below, God, use my pain for your glory. And if this word has touched you, like this video and share it with someone who needs this message of hope. Subscribe to continue this journey with us. Let's walk through the pain together, knowing that we are not alone. Remember, God doesn't waste a single moment of your pain. He's using it to shape you for the purpose He has for your life. Hold on. Your breakthrough is coming. I know that sometimes when the world feels overwhelming, when everything seems to be crashing down, it's hard to believe that anything good can come from it. But I want to tell you today, there is a deeper truth than what your circumstances may be showing you. God is working even when you don't see it. He's moving even when you don't feel it. And His timing is always perfect. Imagine for a moment the story of David. Here was a young shepherd boy, overlooked by his family, tending sheep and living in the wilderness. No one really paid attention to him, but God did. You see, David wasn't just shepherding sheep. He was learning to be a king. It was in the fields, in the quiet moments with God, that David's heart was molded. And when the time came when it was David's turn to step into the spotlight and face Goliath, he was ready. But here's something that's easy to overlook. David didn't just face Goliath with his own strength. He faced him knowing that the God who had been faithful to him in the fields would be faithful in the battle. David's victory wasn't in his own ability. It was in his trust in the one who had been with him through it all. And what if you're in a field right now? What if this season of life that feels like an ordinary, mundane, or even painful place is where God is preparing you for something extraordinary? What if your quiet moments with God, your struggles and your pain are not wasted? What if they're shaping you for a purpose you can't yet see? David's story teaches us that God doesn't waste any part of our journey, even the parts that feel like wilderness, even the seasons that feel like they don't make sense. God uses them to build us, refine us, and prepare us for what's ahead. But there's one thing we must do. We must trust in the process. When you're facing your giants, when you're in the wilderness of your life, the key is to remember that God hasn't forgotten about you. He's still preparing you. He's still with you, and He will never leave you. That's why it's so important to keep your faith strong in the midst of the storm. Even when it feels like the world is against you, God is working on your behalf. He's building something inside of you that will one day bring glory to His name. David's trust in God is what led him to victory, and it's that same trust that will lead you to your breakthrough. Do you trust Him with your story? Do you believe that God is using your journey to shape you for something greater than you can imagine? I encourage you today to take a step of faith and believe that God is working behind the scenes of your life. You may not see it now, but He's orchestrating every detail. If you trust God to work in your wilderness, comment below, I trust the process, Lord. And if this message has spoken to your heart, like and share this video. Let someone else know that their wilderness is not a waste, that God is with them, and that their breakthrough is coming. Keep trusting, keep believing, because just like David, your moment of victory is coming. Let me ask you something that might hit a little deeper. How often do you feel like God is silent? You're praying, you're crying out, but the answer never seems to come. You wonder if He hears you, if He even cares, and in those moments it can feel like you're standing alone in the dark, with no direction. But what if I told you that silence is not the absence of God's presence, but a powerful invitation to trust deeper? What if the silence you're experiencing is actually a moment of preparation? A moment where God is growing you, molding you, and leading you to a place of deeper intimacy with Him. Consider the story of Elijah. He was a prophet of God, someone who had seen miracles and witnessed God's power in mighty ways. Yet in one of his lowest points, when he felt like the entire world was against him, Elijah went into a cave. And it was in that cave that God came to him, not in the mighty wind, the earthquake or the fire, but in a gentle whisper. Do you realize what this means? God's silence often precedes His greatest revelations. It's in the quiet moments that we learn to listen. It's when we stop trying to control everything, when we stop demanding answers on our own timeline, that we can hear the still, small voice of God. In the silence, He is drawing you closer. He is teaching you patience. He is preparing you for what's coming. And He is building something in you that could not have been built in the noise. But the question is, are you willing to stay in the silence long enough to hear God's voice? Or will you rush ahead, missing the transformation He is working within you? I know it's hard. I know that in the silence you may feel abandoned, but in reality, God is closer than ever before. He is shaping your character. He is strengthening your faith, and He is guiding you to a place where your trust in Him will be unshakable. Just like Elijah, you may be in a season where it feels like God is absent, but He's not absent. He's with you, and He is speaking, just in a way that requires you to listen more intently, to trust more deeply, and to rest more fully. This silence is a gift. It's a moment to recalibrate, to learn to lean not on your own understanding, but to trust in God's timing, in His perfect plan. So the next time you find yourself in that silent place, don't run from it. Sit in it, embrace it, and ask God to reveal what He's teaching you in that moment. If this resonated with you, write in the comments below. I trust God's timing. And don't forget to share this video with someone who may be walking through a season of silence. They need to hear that God is not absent. They need to know that He is working in the silence to bring about something beautiful. Trust the process. Trust His silence, because it's preparing you for what's ahead. God's voice is always speaking. Sometimes it just requires us to listen in new ways. We've walked a long road together, haven't we? From the very first word, you've been listening, reflecting, and letting this message sink deeper into your heart. And now we arrive at a powerful realization, the moment where everything you've heard comes together, where the pieces of your journey finally fall into place. But before I reveal this, let me ask you one final question. What if everything you've been through, the pain, the waiting, the moments of silence, wasn't meant to break you, but to build you? What if your struggle, the loneliness, the questions, were all part of a much bigger picture, a divine purpose unfolding right before your eyes? There's a profound truth that many believers miss. God is always speaking to us, even in the silence, and it's often in these quiet moments that He does His most powerful work in us. We can't see it in the moment, but He's shaping us, teaching us, and preparing us for something greater. Everything you've been experiencing, the moments of doubt, the cries of frustration, the questions that have lingered in your mind, have all been part of a divine strategy, one that is leading you to an extraordinary transformation. The silence wasn't God's absence. It was His presence in a different form. God's silence is not His neglect. It is His invitation for you to trust Him at a deeper level than you ever have before. And now, I want to share with you the most powerful secret I've learned. The silence you've been experiencing is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of something greater. The next step in your life, in your faith, and in your relationship with God is coming. But to step into it, you must believe that the silence has served a purpose. It has been preparing your heart, making you ready for what lies ahead. And as we reach the end of this message, I want you to hear me clearly. What you are experiencing right now, the waiting, the wondering, the silence, is leading to something beautiful. God is positioning you for breakthrough. He's refining your spirit, preparing you to rise up in ways you never thought possible. The silence has not been a sign of God's absence. It has been the foundation of the miracle that is coming. And when it comes, it will be more beautiful, more profound, and more life-changing than anything you could have imagined. So take a moment and reflect on this truth. God has not forgotten you. In fact, He is closer than ever. He's not silent because He doesn't care. He's silent because He's about to show you something you've never seen before. Something that will change everything. The silence was not punishment, it was preparation. When you look back at this moment, at the pain, the waiting, the doubts, you will see it for what it truly was. A season of shaping, a season of growth, a season where God was quietly working in the background, getting ready to reveal His glory in your life. The silence is over now, the breakthrough is on its way, and when it comes, you will know without a doubt that it was worth every moment of waiting. You will see that every tear, every question, and every moment of doubt was a necessary part of your journey toward greatness. If this message has spoken to you, if it stirred something deep within you, comment below with the words, "The silence was my preparation." And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Someone who is walking through their own silence, wondering if God has forgotten them. Because God has not forgotten. He has been preparing them for something extraordinary. Trust in His process. Trust in His silence. Because what is coming is beyond anything you could have imagined. God is about to show up in a way that will leave you in awe. You made it. You've stayed until the very end, and I want you to know that this moment is not insignificant. Very few have the courage, the strength, or the heart to remain all the way through. But you have stayed, and in doing so, you've shown something powerful about yourself. You're part of a rare group, those who seek, those who persist, those who long for a deeper connection with the divine. It's not by chance that you're here. You've been led to this very moment, and I believe God has something truly special for you. Let me ask you something. What if the very fact that you stayed here means something far greater than we can comprehend in this moment? What if this is the turning point, the beginning of a new chapter in your life? What if the soul-searching you've been doing, the doubts, the questions, the pain, it all led to this single video, this single moment? This video might just be the answer you were looking for. The healing you need is within reach, if you allow it. And to seal this moment, I ask you to comment below, "I listened to the end." This simple phrase will serve as a marker, a declaration to yourself and to others that you are committed, that you are ready for what's next in your journey. I want you to think about something for a moment. The simple act of sharing this video could change someone's life. There is someone out there who desperately needs to hear this. Maybe they've been waiting for the exact words you just heard. And you, by sharing this, could be the catalyst for their breakthrough. Imagine the impact your kindness could have in that person's life. So I ask you to share this video. Yes, share it with someone you know. Maybe it's a friend, a family member, or someone who you feel needs this message. You may never know how far-reaching your act of sharing truly is, but I promise you, the ripples of that action will extend beyond what you could imagine. And as we close, I want to leave you with something to ponder. Subscribing to this channel isn't just about increasing numbers. It's not about us. It's about being part of a spiritual community that stands firm, even in a world that's growing increasingly cold. This community is one of warmth, truth, and love. And you, by subscribing, become a part of something much bigger than yourself. If this channel is a flame, then you, my friend, are the oil that keeps it burning. Without your support, without your presence, the light would flicker. But with you, it remains bright and powerful. So, as we come to the end of this video, I invite you to remain for just a few moments longer. Don't rush off just yet. Allow the silence to fill the space and listen to the music. Let this be your moment of surrender, a time to talk to God in your heart, and perhaps hear Him speak in a way you've never heard before. This is where your journey continues, and it continues in a way that's different because of your choice. To stay, I will leave you with this thought: you are not here by accident. God has been with you every step of the way, so remain silent and listen.